Madam President and Senators, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
November 1st, All Saints' Day, is the time to remember the church triumphant, persons who have gone on to the heavenly reward, and also a time to remember the church militant, that is those of us who are still alive and doing kingdom work. Hebrews 12 and a part of verse 1 states, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses." The writer to the Hebrews gives the image that from the portals of heaven, the saints that have gone on before are cheering us on to do our very best, to complete our earthly assignment, and to finish strong. Have you ever paused to reflect on who are the saints of the past who have impacted your life, whether they are biblical, historical, national, or family members? Have you taken the time to thoroughly examine their biographies, to know the sacrifices and the legacies they have left behind? Do you value the foundation that has been passed on to you and I? And are you doing your part to protect and build on it in a positive and holistic way? Proverbs 22 and 28 states, remove not the ancient landmarks or boundaries which thy fathers have set. We are living in a world that is fast evolving so quickly, and as nation builders and leaders, you are tasked with the responsibility to determine how do we progress without losing our spiritual footing and our national identity. This is an awesome responsibility, but the saints of the past and of the present are depending on you to seek godly wisdom so that you will navigate wisely and lead us comfortably into the future. Marcus Garvey said, "A people without the knowledge of their past, history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." Reflecting on those who have gone on before challenges each leader to be determined to be a nation builder whose impact will remain long after they are gone. This requires examining the world around you and ensuring that you are doing what is needed to make a difference. At times, it may appear that very little may be happening, and persons may be constantly complaining, but you must stay focused, keep working, and never give up. Galatians 6 and 9 states, "And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." To each leader and present-day saint of this dispensation, recognize there is no perfect situation, just opportunities disguised as problems for you to assist with. Sometimes the persons you help the most may not be grateful or even credit you with the help you have given them. Do not be discouraged. Keep doing what is right. Remember that God has granted you the opportunity to lead. Serve with a spirit of excellence. When you feel tired or discouraged, remember the saints of old persevered and overcame many challenges. The God who helped them will also empower you to complete your task. I conclude with Hebrews 12, 1 and 2 from the Message. "Therefore, since we also have such a large crowd of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every hindrance and the sin that easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that lies before us, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and the protector of our faith." Amen. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the saints who have gone on before, for their lives, witness, legacy, and that they have completed their assignment and have gone on to their eternal rest. May every senator recognize the awesome responsibility they have and serve with excellence. May they never give up or fail to realize that every day they are developing a legacy that will survive long into the future. May they turn their eyes to you And may the Lord guide and keep them in all their undertakings and protect them and their families. All these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good afternoon, Senators and members of the gallery. Today is the afternoon session for the 3rd of November, 2005. Adoption of minutes. The Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Alkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the minutes of the session of the Senate held on Monday, the 20th of October, 2025, be adopted.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the Senate session held on Monday, the 20th of October, 2025, be adopted. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Have it. The motion is carried. The minutes of the Senate session held on Monday, the 20th of October, are hereby adopted. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign. The Chair wishes to acknowledge and to advise the wider Senate body that on the 28th day of October 2025, the Chair received a resignation letter from Senator the Honorable Darren Pickstock. With mixed emotions, the resignation was accepted from Senator Pickstock, and I hereby table the resignation on the floor of the Senate. So, I hereby wish to read the resignation of Senator Pickstock. Dear Madam President, from a young age, I want to make my parents proud. My mother, Esther Lane Pickstock, served faithfully as a civil servant, and my father, Philip Pickstock, devoted his life to teaching young Bahamians. They taught me that no matter where you begin, with faith, hard work, and integrity, you can shape your own future. Those values became my compass. As a student at Government High, I packed bags in the grocery store after school to help my family. Later, I worked as a busboy and a cleaner to pay for my education. I worked nights so that I could attend classes during the day. Through every hardship, I held to one truth, that the God who brought me thus far will never fail me. Through that faith, I became a lawyer and a businessman, helping Bahamians start companies, buy homes, and build stability for their families. I have seen firsthand the strength, creativity, and perseverance of our people. The Bahamian spirit is powerful. It believes, it works, and it never gives up. Serving as senator has been one of the greatest honors of my life. It has given me the opportunity to lend my voice to the cause of progress and to witness the dedication of so many who serve this nation. I am grateful to the Prime Minister for his confidence and to his colleagues in the, and to my colleagues in the Senate for their friendship and support. As I reflect, Madam President, I also wish to thank you for your leadership and for the grace and faith with which you have guided the affairs of this chamber. You have reminded us all that service is sacred work and that humility and prayer are as important in leadership as policy and debate. As a woman of faith, your example has inspired many, and I join Bahamians in thanking you for the dignity and wisdom you bring to the role as president. After much reflection and prayer, I have decided to resign my seat in the Senate, effective immediately. This decision comes from a place of gratitude and conviction. I believe my next chapter is to serve closer to the people, to be on the ground working with families, small businesses, and young people who want to see change that they can touch and feel. I thank the Bahamian people for your encouragement, your prayers, and your faith in me. Every story I have heard and every hand I have shaken reminds me why this work matters. I remain committed to building a Bahamas where hard work opens doors, opportunity is within reach, and faith continues to light our path forward. May God bless our people and guide the future of this beloved nation. Sincerely, Darren Pickstock. I hereby table the resignation. Swearing in of new senators. Communications by the President. As always, the Chair extends sincere gratitude and appreciation to our respected and dedicated Senate chaplain for biblically sound and spiritual advice and admonition. I can assure you that your words are not falling on deaf ears. I wish to congratulate the sitting Youth Senate who led a robust and engaging and challenging debate this morning on artificial intelligence and the Junkanoo Authority bill. They all did a fantastic job. Congratulations are extended to Minister Mario Boleg, the Minister of Youth, Sports, and Culture, and his team for their dedication and devotion to uplifting and empowering the youth of our nation. The Chair extends heartfelt condolences to the family and friends and the entire St. Augustine's College community and the St. Joseph Church Parish on the passing of 16-year-old Madeline Thompson, who died during a school field trip in Panama. This is traumatic for the family and her loved ones. I share in their pain because I too lost a teenage cousin whilst on a school trip. To Ms. Thompson's parents and friends, and in particular her parents, be assured of my prayers for your strength and trust in God. A little over 2 weeks ago, Lauren Saunders, a 30-year-old pregnant mother of 2 children, was murdered. The Chair extends heartfelt condolences to her children, parents, siblings, and other family members. Mrs. Sanders was reported missing, and her body was later found. Another tragic murder and victim of domestic violence left on the side of the road. 2 minor children with no mother and a family without a sister daughter, cousin, and friend. Bahamian citizens from all walks of life were outraged at senseless crime. It is times like these, every citizen must remain committed to the fight against all levels of injustices, including the end to domestic-based violence against women and children. The scourge of domestic-based violence can be eliminated, but we must not grow weary in well-doing. We need to continue our efforts to promote respectful and peaceful relationships. We need to continue to lend our voice for the voiceless, continue to speak out, step up, and to stand up with those who experience domestic-based violence and inequality. We need to redouble our efforts towards activism for respect, equality, safety, justice, and protection in our homes, communities, schools, workplaces, and churches. This human rights issue still demands our full and collective attention individually and collectively. Our standing under a cohesive canopy can make a difference. Our collective efforts of men and boys as allies and women and girls in mentorship can bring positive and has been bringing positive changes. Today, we appreciate the partnership of both the Crisis Center and Rotary in pinning us with white ribbons. The White Ribbon Campaign is a global movement involvement with over 60 countries involved, where men and boys work to end male violence against women and girls. The white ribbon symbolizes the idea of men giving up their arms. The chair thanks all Bahamian men who stand up for women and girls and lend their voice, time, financial resources, and expertise to end gender-based violence against women and girls. Let us continue to stand side by side and call out disrespect, bias, inequality, intolerance, and replace them with empathy, kindness, equality, and protection. Together, we can all continue to make a significant difference. In the gallery, we have persons who lead by example, and our pioneers in the are not only are they advocates, but they operate with action against domestic-based violence. I welcome to the gallery today the indomitable members of the Crisis Center and the Rotary Club. Firstly, I welcome Dr. Sandra Dean Patterson. Can you please stand? And also Cleopatra Christie. Africa Smith. And Owen Coakley from Rotary as well as the Crisis Center. Thank you all for pitting us with white ribbons, and thank you all for raising awareness to this important issue. Thousands of persons in the Bahamas are safer because of your efforts. As previously mentioned, the chair accepted the recent resignation of Senator Darren Pickstock. I'm sure that colleagues across the political divide will agree that the former Senator Pickstock will be missed from the upper chamber. During his tenure in the Senate for the last 4 years, Senator Pickstock contributed significantly and remained devoted to his work in the Senate. He was always armed with sound, pragmatic, historic, and principled contributions. Whatever the bill being presented, he first and foremost advanced the interests of Bahamian citizens. His contributions echoed his commitment to advance democracy and to wipe every tear from the eyes of Bahamians. The chair thanks Senator Pistock for the time he served as chair of the Senate body and the Committee of the Whole. In addition, the chair thanks Senator Pistock for his integrity, sacrifices, and willingness to serve the Bahamian public. Best wishes are extended to you, Senator Pistock, for your future endeavors. May God continue to bless Senator Pistock. May God continue to bless the Crisis Center and Rotary. May God continue to bless each one of you senators present here. And may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I hereby table the President's communications. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the House of Assembly.
Message from the House of Assembly.
Bahamas number 47. Message to the Honorable the President and the Honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have agreed to the following resolution and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, now therefore be it resolved that this House, A, authorizes the Treasurer to dispose of $17 million from employees held by the Treasurer and forming a part. B, approves the transfer of $17 million by the Treasurer from the dormant account proceeds held by the Treasurer and forming consolidated funds to the Disaster Emergency Fund. House of Assembly, Nassau, 22nd October 2025. Patricia DeVos, Speaker. Bahamas number 48. Message to the Honorable the President and Honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bill and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act and the Financial Account Information Act. House of Assembly, Nassau, 29th October 2025. Patricia DeVos, Speaker.
Laying of documents by ministers. Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, I beg you to lay on the table of the Senate a copy of the Office of the Attorney of the Auditor General Audit Report on the National Food Distribution Program for the period April 2020 to September 2021.
Order document be brought up. Order document do lie on the table. Laying of documents.
And none, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Communications by ministers. Communications by senators. Questions. Answers. Presentation of petitions. Appointment of select committees. Reports of committees. First reading of bills. Second reading and committal of bills. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Pinder.
Thank you, Madam President. I certainly want to echo your comments and your welcome to our guests in the gallery today. think we all wear our white ribbon proudly today in this honorable place. Madam President, before I begin, I also want to echo your comments about our former colleague in this place, Senator Darren Pickstock, who has done a yeoman's job on the government side, advocating in this place for the progress and the achievements and what our government has been doing to advance the lives of the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, to make the country a better place for all. And I have utmost confidence, Madam President, that he will do the same as the new Member of Parliament for Golden Isles. Once the votes are cast on November 24th, that great constituency. Right, Mike? The right stock. Darren. Madam President, I think we are going to both the bill we debate today and the resolution that we look to debate later on the agenda. But I think, as the leader of government business has advised, members will be open to contribute to both pieces during the debate on the bill. Is that correct? I will, and I thank you for the opposition for consenting to that.
Madam President, Attorney General speaks truth.
Truth to power, Madam President. Truth to power. And so I will contribute to the bill, and my colleague, Minister Peters, will mention some words on the resolution. So the fact that I don't speak on the resolution doesn't mean that we are not addressing it as part of this debate. So today, I rise for the second reading of the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Amendment Number 2 Bill of 2025. I think it helpful, Madam President, to introduce, for the benefit of colleagues around the table and those who are watching and listening on the radio, the concept of automatic exchange of financial information and where it originated, and why it's an important context within the financial services industry. The automatic exchange of information, which is otherwise known as the Common Reporting Standard, is a standard implemented and put forward by the OECD, our good friends in Paris. In 2016, the Bahamas committed to the automatic exchange of financial information when we enacted the Common Reporting Standard through the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act of 2016, later amended in 2017, then in 2019. I think we amended it in 2022, and we amended again today. The Bahamas commenced exchanges under the Automatic Exchange of Information Standard in 2018 after the passage of the Act and the implementation of the regime that would cause us to exchange this information. And this is an automatic exchange of information. Before that, as everybody might know, we were parties to what are called tax information exchange agreements, which are exchange of information on request. So another country pursuant to that treaty could request an exchange of information. With the Common Reporting Standard, which is the bill we debate today, the amendment, this is now automatic every year. So a financial institution has to submit the financial information of its clients to be exchanged with the home jurisdiction of that client automatically every day. Every year. And the Bahamas was tasked at the time of commencing exchanges, which again are in 2018, with the effective implementation and monitoring of the automatic exchange of information. To ensure that the standard, the Automatic Exchange of Information Standard, is fully effective, The Global Forum, which is an international body affiliated with the OECD, reviews each jurisdiction's domestic and international legal frameworks to ensure that they are complete, and they also review the effectiveness of implementation of the standard in practice. So not only do you have to have law in place, but you have to demonstrate that you're actually doing it effectively in practice. And that means really that the private industry is complying, and then the institution, which we have as the Compliance Commission overseeing this, is also doing its job in ensuring the effective exchange of information. We recently had a peer review here in the Bahamas, where the OECD and the government of the Bahamas evaluated where the country is at from an effectiveness point of view, and collectively we developed a strategy to advance the jurisdiction, to address any areas that were observed that needed further action, with a goal to next year, when the evaluation is determined, that the Bahamas exits the review with a largely compliant review. Remember, because of the ineffectiveness of the prior F&M administration, we were non-compliant. We now have a collective strategy with the OECD to proceed to next year, hopefully achieving a largely compliant rating. In just 4 short years, that is unheard of. That's unheard of. Unheard of. One of the areas identified in the peer in July, so it was over the summer, is that regulators, the Securities Commission, the Insurance Commission, and the Central Bank, have the legislative authority to operate as the enforcement agent on behalf of which is the competent authority. And that in performing those activities, the regulators need the power to issue and enforce penalties. So the Automatic Exchange of Financial Information Amendment Bill of 2025 that we debate today seeks to make various amendments to the Principal Act to better support the delegation by the competent authority of functions and powers for data management, compliance monitoring, intelligence gathering, and enforcement powers. And we delegate to what we call the designated supervisory authorities, but those are the regulators that I just mentioned in the financial services industry. This bill, this amendment bill, Madam President, contains 5 amendments in particular. The first is a new definition of designated supervisory authority to account for the different supervisory authorities or the different regulators for the purposes of the automatic exchange of information. The second amendment is clarification of the competent authority's power to delegate to these authorities. The third is to repeal and to replace section excluded accounts. So there is an adjustment in what an excluded account is. You'll see it in this legislation, but you'll also see it in recently released guidance notes on the Common Reporting Standard that make that adjustment as well. So those in the industry, I would encourage you to take a look at those changes. The fourth primary amendment is the payment of administrative penalties into the consolidated fund. So this is the authority of the regulators to issue fines and then to be able to have those paid into the consolidated account. And the last is the right to appeal to the Supreme Court by a group regarding the imposition of penalties. So we as a government certainly believe in the concept of due process. And that last amendment puts that and codifies that with respect to the automatic exchange of information. This is one of the steps suggested by the OECD peer review to ensure that the enforcement side of the regime effectively and is a suitable deterrent for unsanctioned activities in the financial services industry. Madam President, in this era of financial services, maintaining an approach of compliance with international standards and best practices is an absolute. the country nor the industry can afford a non-compliant rating. There are serious consequences to having non-compliant designation. Operating in a high-risk environment, and you would appreciate that, Madam President, what that means. Challenges with correspondent banking and the efficiency of cross-border transactions. All of those consequences have real-world impact on payments throughout the archipelago. They may be technical and they may be complicated, but being non-compliant has adverse consequences throughout the archipelago for all Bahamians, whether you're in the financial services industry or not. We as a government will continue to strive to ensure we do what we can to ensure that there is stability, there is transparency, and there is compliance in the financial services industry. With this recognition, we also want to recognize and point out that there are inherent inequalities, inequities, biases in the international regulatory system that puts small international financial centers like the Bahamas under unfair and frequently a predetermined microscope. As a result, we now see the need for renewed multilateralism in the context of international taxation. We know there's been an international law, which we have been part of for the United Nations, to now direct international tax policy making, and has customarily been a more inclusive body for developing countries such as the Bahamas concerning international taxation. There is an intergovernmental committee of the United Nations working on a framework convention on international tax cooperation. I'm a member of that intergovernmental committee that is charged with negotiating, drafting, and implementing the. Where this will all end up, we will see. Because again, this is a fight between the global north and the global south. A fight between the developed world and the developing world. This is a complicated geopolitical framework. Even more so given the not so quiet position of our neighbors to the north and west. Where this will end up, we hope that we will see it through, and the Bahamas will continue to be active in this process. Because we believe our best hope for equity and predictability is through the United Nations. We have to continue to be active in these negotiations, Madam President. In fact, next week I will participate in a technical negotiating session. We will work on and hopefully agree to, as a collective, on the actual text of the United Nations Tax Convention. This will be the overarching convention that will lead to a more equitable oversight of international tax matters throughout the world. Recognizing it is vital for the Bahamas to stay on top of regulatory changes and compliance with international standards, and it's the importance to continue the fight for equality and a level playing field, the financial services industry also must innovate. We must constantly create and reformed opportunities in the industry. We legislate, we make policy, all for the goal of attracting more business to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And focus on our key markets to ensure that we are always relevant and always the jurisdiction of choice, especially in those markets where throughout the last decade, even 2 decades, we have sunk and paid and contributed the people's resources to ensure that the Bahamas remains jurisdiction in these countries. Our administration has demonstrated this in our legislative actions, in our policy determinations, the presence of government ministers at promotional and jurisdiction development events. We saw legislative reforms, for instance, brought about demerger of companies. We passed legislation for our investment condominium fund to be converted to a bear company. We passed new segregated account company legislation that allows for the vehicle to be used in planning structures and incorporates incorporated cells into that structure. Madam President, we are also working on a new piece of legislation that we think will increase structuring opportunities for that originate in civil law jurisdictions. Civil law jurisdictions such as Brazil, such as France, such as Switzerland, such as Italy, all of these key markets. In the past, the Bahamas has been innovative in its marriage of civil law concepts with common law legislative precedent. We've actually led the way, Madam President, in the world in doing this. This includes a foundation. A foundation is a civil law construct that we have adopted in legislation in a common law setting. The investment condominium that I just mentioned is a civil law construct in Brazil we put in place through common law legislation. And this new product, I shall not go into detail because I know that our competitors watch me in the Senate. We got to keep it under wraps, but we are working on it. Our new product we should have in place by Q1 2026. And I think it'll be revolutionary to structuring and planning in the financial services industry of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Needless to say, Madam President, this PLP administration, this one right here, we have a commitment to innovation, a commitment to the advancement, the success, and the prosperity of the financial services industry of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The PLP administration was the first administration to create a Ministry of Financial Services, demonstrating the government commitment in policy making for the industry. We continue to legislate. We continue to legislate and create policy and innovate. Madam President, maintaining a successful international financial center, the current geopolitical and regulatory environment is challenging. There is so much effort and expense by the government and frankly by private industry to maintain compliance standards and to ensure that we are doing what is necessary when the guidelines adjust and the rules adjust. Equally, it is a tremendous commitment by government and industry to keep abreast of developments in our key markets and continue to innovate and remain relevant. This on top of education, training the private workforce, building capacity both in government agencies and in the private sector, and ensuring a front-of-the-class regulatory framework keeps us in the industry very, very busy, Madam President. Keeps us very busy. Achieving this is a commitment that we will not shy away from. The financial services industry over the last few generations, in my view, is primarily responsible for the creation of the middle class of the country, to providing scores of Bahamians the resources to further themselves and to further their family, to send Bahamians off to school, to give them the exposure to develop and help develop our country. This is what the financial services industry, in my view, has given back and done for the country. This is our, Madam President. This is why we come with legislative adjustments. And this is why we continue to innovate, to ensure that the Bahamas remains the country of choice, and Bahamians are given every opportunity to succeed within the financial services industry. Madam President, with those few words, I move for the second reading of the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Amendment Number 2 Bill 2025. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Ryan Pinder, for your contribution. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Before I begin, Madam President, I would just like to join you and my colleague, Senator Pinder, in welcoming the representatives from the Crisis Center and the Rotary Club as they commemorate White Ribbon Day, as you indicated, represents men giving up their arms, their strength, and really a commemoration on the fight, the continued fight for the elimination of domestic violence against women and girls. And we welcome the iconic Sandy Patterson from the Crisis Center to our gallery, and we salute you, ma'am, for all of the work you've done over so many decades in sensitizing the Bahamian public to the issue of domestic violence, but not only sensitizing them, but also working on the elimination of domestic violence. In speaking to one of the representatives of the Crisis Center earlier, she indicated to me that this White Ribbon Day also is in memory of the horrific events back in, I think it was November 1989, at the engineering college in Quebec, where I think it was about 18 or so young engineering students, women, were killed. It came out that they were particularly targeted because they were women. Shared with her, Madam President, I was a young student at the University of Western Ontario in those days, that having just gone in late August. And so this event happened, I think it was around the 1st of November, and it was just, you know, a lot of fear, and it was really horrific. And it's good that all these days we are we continue to mourn and share in the grief of those families who lost their loved ones. I think it should undergird and renew our determination to continue to fight for the elimination of domestic violence against women and girls, and indeed in all its forms. So we salute you, Dr. Dean Patterson. Thank you for your work, and we make a commitment to do all we can from where we stand and sit and assist. Madam President, in moving to the bill, I want to, of course, all of the words said by my colleague, the Attorney General, the Automatic Exchange of Account Information Bill. And as we also have on the agenda, the resolution to transfer $17 million from the consolidated fund to the disaster fund, the disaster emergency fund. And so I wanted to just, like that the Attorney General has so thoroughly ventilated the issue on the amendment, I'll just talk about the resolution as well, Madam President. And as we know, this resolution speaks to transferring funds to the Disaster Emergency Fund. And the intent of the Disaster Emergency Fund is to put the country in a better position to respond to events of natural disaster. When we speak of events of natural disaster, we inevitably, Madam President, come back around to the issue of climate change and the topic of climate change. When we come to the issue of climate change, Madam President, we again come to the fact that we here in the Bahamas and all of us across this region in small island states contribute little in terms of emissions and other pollution that leads to the impact of climate change as we more and more severe and more frequent. We contribute very little, but because we are surrounded by ocean, because many of us are low-lying, most of us are small, our economies are small, when those events do hit, the impact upon us are small, magnified. And so, for example, Madam President, it has been estimated that in our case, up to 40% of our debt is related to the government having to go out and borrow money to rebuild in the aftermath of storms. And so we have, as successive administrations in this country, the responsibility to govern and administer the country and provide services and provide infrastructure, and at the same time in a position to respond or having on occasions having to respond to natural disaster. Madam President, we understand that what we need today are innovative, strategic, and sustainable solutions enable us to take on our most pressing climate challenges to create opportunities for a more resilient and prosperous future for our nation. So pairing in advance, moving out of the mode of simply responding into a mode of preparation, risk assessment, and risk mitigation, Madam President. And so we learned that disaster preparation and the funding and infrastructure that supports disaster preparation must be proactive, must be sustained, and it must also be robust enough to account for the threats that we seek. And so this resolution before us, Madam President, seeks to ensure that when disaster strikes, the government of the Bahamas has the financial capacity to respond swiftly, effectively, and equitably, because as we know, we are spread across many islands, and as we have seen in the last event, some islands are affected more than others, but our response has to be equal. And so, in this case, thankfully, New Providence and most of the central and up the northern, up north, as we move north up the chain, were spared, but we also have to be in a position so that our brothers and sisters in our central and southern islands are able to have the benefit of the government's response. Unfortunately, Madam President, in the past, we have been in mode. We're looking to get more in a proactive mode, Madam President, and that is why we have seen in recent years the evolution from the NEMA model, the Emergency Response Model, and the National Emergency Management Agency, to the Disaster Risk Management Authority, Madam President, which we believe represents a shift in mindset. Madam President, we know that the Disaster Risk Management Act was passed in 2022, which provided the legal foundation for a comprehensive, structured, and accountable disaster management system. The Act, Madam President, the Disaster Risk Management Act 2022, also called for a comprehensive, that act mandated that we design a comprehensive financial strategy for disaster risk management. And that's the strategy here, the Bahamas Comprehensive Financial Strategy for Disaster Risk Management, which was prepared by the Ministry of Finance in consultation with the Disaster Risk Management Authority, supported by the Inter-American Development Bank. And so what it seeks to do, Madam President, is on as much as we can, on a scientific basis, try and quantify the financial risk of natural disasters, how it would affect our economy, our budget, national finances, and if we can quantify it or quantify it, then it puts us in a position better able to respond. So, Madam President, this strategy was prepared by the Ministry of Finance, as I said, in consultation with the Disaster Risk Management Authority and IDB. It is a practical, evidence-based, best practice plan that funds every stage of our disaster risk management cycle. So, we have a risk analysis, which allows us to know the extent of the risk that we are facing. So they go through and look at, in the event of natural disasters, what segments of the economy will be most impacted. Can we put a dollar figure on that? A risk reduction, so we can take proactive action to minimize damage before the storm. Preparedness, so that we are ready when storms arrive. Rehabilitation and we can restore what was damaged and build back, Madam President. And so the need to put financial projections in place so that our response and mitigation efforts do not come at the expense of our many other priorities. So, Madam President, what the strategy seeks to do is to help quantify what the risk is, what the potential damage and disruption that you might have from a natural disaster, so you can prepare for it, and it doesn't, again, put in jeopardy your, if I were to say, everyday management of the country. You don't have to stop what you're doing in order to respond to the risk, Madam President. It was, strategy was prepared by experts using advanced tools, very sophisticated stuff. And what it shows is the government faced potential losses up to $700 million from major hurricane and flood events. And in response, so that is what they have determined that it could be. Of course, it could be more. We saw in Dorian that it was much more. And it seeks to give you a number on what your response should be, how you should be prepared. And so there are several elements to that preparation. We have the Caribbean Catastrophic Risk Insurance Facility, $1 million. We have a $100 million contingent credit facility with the IDB. There's a risk reduction, the disaster prevention fund, $6 million. Disaster risk management annual budget allocation of $60 million. This $17 million that we seek to transfer now from the consolidated fund to the disaster preparedness fund, and the remainder is what you need to find after the hurricane. So we have, the idea is you quantify what the risk is, $700 million, you put certain things in place, as I've enunciated, the insurance, the contingency fund, the other funds, and the rest of it, any shortfall is what you do after the disaster. And so instead of being caught by surprise and, wow, we have $700 million in damage, find that you put some things in place to help to mitigate that. So the idea is, in the event of a disaster, you totally stop, have to divert all of your resources to recovery, you have some preparedness, some things in place. And so, Madam President, this resolution seeks simply, I wanted to give that bit of a background. This resolution seeks to authorize the Treasurer to transfer $17 million that's in the consolidated fund to the Disaster Recovery Fund, Madam President. And the proceeds, these are proceeds from the dormant accounts. And I want to spend just a few minutes talking about the dormant account process, because there might be some misinformation about dormant accounts. So these funds will come from dormant accounts. President, under the rules and regulations governing the dormant account funds, a minimum of 17 years of inactivity has to elapse before the funds are finally turned over to the government. 17 years. So it's not the government grabbing people's money out of their accounts. 17 years of inactivity has to occur, 17 years of no activity at all, none, before these funds are finally turned over to the government. And I realize, Madam President, that almost two-thirds of the dormant funds are for foreign currency depositors. So again, up to two-thirds of these funds in dormant accounts are foreign currency depositors, where there have been no activity for 17 years. An account is considered dormant after it has been kept at a bank for 7 years without any activity taking place. So in the bank, 7 years, no activity taking place. Only after this period are the funds transferred from the bank to the central bank. Under the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act, a Dormant Funds Investment Committee has been established to manage the investment of the funds. And these funds must be held in safe custody with the Central Bank of the Bahamas for a period of 10 years. So you have 7 years in the bank, no activity, no activity. Turned over to the central bank. There's another period of 10 years before the money is finally turned over to the government. If the amount transferred to the bank is $500 or less, then the government would receive the amount at the 7th year, if it's $500 or less. However, the right of the account holder to reclaim the balances will still remain in place until 17 years in total has passed. That is, for another 10 years. So, again, if there's no activity for 7 years, those funds are turned over to the government of the Bahamas. It's $500 or less. Those are turned over. You still have a further 10 years to be able to go back and say, these are my funds, please let me have my funds. So 17 years of inactivity. The system is still geared to helping persons reclaim their funds. In the 7-year interval of the inactivity when funds remain with financial institutions, the central bank's guidance is that these institutions must make periodic efforts to contact the customer and encourage the customer to reactivate or close out their account. Reactivation is simply initiating some transaction across the account, put in some money, take out money. If the customer misses these reactivation opportunities but still contacts their bank at any time after the 10 years during which the funds sit with the central bank, the financial institution still requests the return of these funds to the customer. Even account balances of less than $500 that were turned over to the government at the 7-year point must also be returned if the customer shows up before 17 years in total has passed. The central bank is also exploring ways to improve the search and recovery process for dormant accounts. This is expected to lead to a public record of what's being established. However, those seeking to reclaim the funds would still have to be the customers themselves or persons legal to the estates, so descendants of deceased individuals to whom the accounts may have belonged. Since the legislation was changed in 2020, $63.5 million in funds met the 17-year dormancy requirement to have been turned over to the government, and those are the balances from which approved parliamentary allocations are being sought. At the same time, the value of accounts that remain dormant and under the custody of the central bank is approximately $132 million. Government does not have access to these funds because they still fall within the timeline for the account holders to reclaim them. And also, almost two-thirds of these balances belong, as I said, to foreign currency account holders as opposed to B-dollar holders. So I wanted to share that information with the public, Madam President, because I saw some commentary about dormant funds. And just to make the point, there has to be total inactivity for 7 years at the bank. When the bank turns the money over to the central bank, there's another 10 years of inactivity. Any time within those 17 years, any account holder, their family, their, someone who is legally entitled, they can go to the central bank and say, give me my money. All right, so this is not a grab by the government of Bahamian funds. Two-thirds of this is foreign currency denominated. And so that is the source of these, where we're seeking to have these funds that have really been abandoned after due process to the central bank and to the government of the Bahamas. And then furthermore, regulations and structure in place as to how these funds are to be used, and in this case, for disaster risk management. And so that is the information on the dormant account, Madam President, Chair. And I would conclude there, Madam President, and just saying those few words on resolution, also seek to pass today, and also once again endorse all of the comments and contribution of the Attorney General in seconding the amendment bill of the automatic exchange of financial account information number 2 of 2025.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Michael Howell. Second, bill be read for second time and act to amend the automatic exchange of financial account information Act. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Barnett Ellis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, before I turn to the business before us today, I pause to acknowledge that this Sunday our nation will once again join the Commonwealth family in observing Remembrance Day. It's a solemn moment each year which we intentionally step back from the routine of daily life and we honor those men and women who served, sacrificed, and gave themselves in the name of freedom, democracy, and peace. For some, Remembrance Day is historic. For others, including my own family, it is deeply personal. My maternal grandfather left St. Vincent, traveled to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and served in the Canadian Armed Forces during the Second World War. He was there on D-Day. And whether they served in the Caribbean Regiment, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Defense Force, or Allied forces abroad, we simply and sincerely say, we remember them, we thank them, and for them, I will always wear my poppy. I want to thank the Crisis Center for pinning us with white ribbons. The white ribbon is the world's largest movement of men and boys working to end violence against women and girls. I support the President's remarks earlier in her contribution on this matter. Together, raise awareness and eliminate violence against women and girls, which too often happens in domestic relationships, which is why I continue to call upon the Minister of Social Services to commission the Protection Against Violence Commission. And with those reflections from our hearts, I now turn to the matters at hand. Exchange of Financial Information Amendment Number 2 bill is a bill that refines our legal framework for the international financial cooperation and compliance. Though this legislation is technical in nature, it speaks to something broader, our ongoing responsibility to uphold integrity, accountability, and good governance, not only in how we engage the world, but how we serve the Bahamian every day. This bill amends the Automatic Exchange of Financial Information Act 2016 to strengthen the Bahamas' compliance with international standards, particularly under the OECD's Common Reporting Standard. It does so by redefining designated supervisory authority to include the Central Bank, the Securities Commission, the Insurance Commission, and the Compliance Commission. Under the previous definition, these bodies were already listed along with the Gaming Board of the Bahamas. In this amendment, the Gaming Board is removed. And while that may simply reflect the fact that the Gaming Board's supervisory responsibilities differ from those of traditional financial regulators, the government owes the Bahamian people a clear explanation for its exclusion. Because, Madam President, we all know that number housing accounts function in a way that is practically indistinguishable from banking services, especially in the Family Island communities where commercial banks have withdrawn their services. That is a practical reality Bahamians live every day. And if we're serious about closing regulatory gaps, if we're serious about treating every Bahamian's financial information with equal integrity, then we cannot simply remove an entire category of financial actors from this framework without explaining who now have responsibility for monitoring or exchanging account holder information related to accounts. This bill also allows the competent authority, the Ministry of Finance, to delegate powers and functions to supervisory authorities. It updates excluded accounts to ensure it directs that administrative penalties be paid into the consolidated fund, and it introduces formal mechanisms in reinforcing fairness and access to justice. So yes, Madam President, while technical, this bill touches on the very fundamental questions of oversight, equity, and financial inclusion. We on this side will support this bill, but while we do so, while reminding this government that transparency cannot be something reserved only for international regulators, while Bahamians remain in the dark at home. Because Bahamian people experience the consequences when transparency is selective, when approvals take months, when national registries are unreliable, when promised accountability legislation like the Ombudsman Act, the Independent Commission of Investigations Act, and the Protected Disclosures Act remain unimplemented. That erodes confidence. And it is confidence, not compliance checkboxes, that hold a democracy steady. Madam President, this brings me to the second matter in this compendium, the resolution to transfer dormant account proceeds into the Disaster Risk Management Fund. These two items are not separate. They are two sides of the same coin. Both ask the Bahamian people to trust government with power over their financial information and their financial assets. So I must ask, if the hurricane season began on June 1st, why is this urgent resolution only now being brought in the final month of the season? Madam President, the hurricane season hasn't changed. This administration is very well aware of the impact of climate change, and they're telling everyone about it. So why now? I can't help but wonder, because unexpectedly there's a by-election upon us now. And that constituency that they neglected, and they admit they neglected, suddenly needs paved roads, roof repairs, and contracts awarded. But we aren't the conks they take us for. Suddenly investing in a constituency after years of neglect will not wipe our memories like the gizmo from Men in Black. But most importantly, we also remember that this administration is well known for allocating money from matters that benefit us, quietly repurposing the money for matters well themselves. We remember that they moved funds away from the Disabilities Commission for a lavish memorial service before the last by-election. So when this government now says, trust us, this is what we will do with the money, the Bahamian people have earned the right based on what track record? So just as we demand clarity on which entity will supervise gaming accounts under the automatic exchange of financial information, we also demand the regulations for this disaster emergency fund. Madam President, too often legislation is brought into this place without even draft regulations, so that we, with the constitutional duty to make laws for the good governance and peace of Bahamian people, can fully consider the application of the matters we consider. If the government wants the people to take this seriously, bring the guardrails first, even in draft. Secondly, Madam President, the resolution speaks to transferring money to the Disaster Emergency Fund, which has a specific purpose: disaster response, rehabilitation, recovery, and adopting financial protection instruments. But here and in the other place, they have spoke about the purposes of an entirely different fund, and that's the Disaster Protection Fund. Madam President, they can't seem to get the story straight. They don't seem to understand the purpose of the Disaster Emergency Fund. And therefore, we can't trust them to use it for its statutory purpose, especially if they don't know what it is. Madam President, people do not want political theater disguised as resilience policy. They want fairness, they want safety, they want. We support the bill before us, but we call upon the government to treat Bahamian transparency with the same urgency that they treat international reporting. Because selective transparency is not transparency at all, and the work of Parliament must always be guided by that principle. God, as always, may God continue to bless you, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Senator Honorable Michael Bonnet Ellis, for your contribution. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Ronald Duncan.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, indeed, it's a privilege and an honor to rise once again in this honorable Senate to contribute to the debate on the Automatic Exchange of Financial Information Amendment Bill 2025. Each opportunity to stand in this hollow halls reminds me of the sacred trust that's been bestowed upon us in this place, and that this bill may be small, but it's an important step in protecting our nation's finances and securing our economic future. Madam President, before I proceed further, I wish to take a moment to give my thoughts and prayers to the islands of the Bahamas that were experienced disruption of Hurricane Melissa. People of Jamaica who continue to recover in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. Today I stand in solidarity with our Caribbean brothers and sisters during this challenging time. And as images of resilience and unity, compassion emerging from across the island of Jamaica, it reminds us that as a region, we are bound together not only by geography, but by shared struggle and shared hope. And the Bahamas knows all too well the toll such storms can take. As the Prime Minister reminded us during his contribution to this very bill, Hurricane Melissa is a stark reminder that climate change is not a threat. It's a present and pressing reality. So, Madam President, those words resonate deeply. Remind us that climate change is not only an environmental challenge, it is an economic and social one as well. So as we build systems in financial accountability and resilience, we must also be kind and think about sustainable governance that we can withstand the storms, both literal and physical, that lie ahead. And speaking of the next generation, Madam Speaker, Madam President, I'm putting you in a place, Madam President. I wish to mention the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture for their recent hosting of Youth in Parliament. As we witnessed in that chamber, there was more than just a stimulation of governance. It was a glimpse into the promise of our nation's future. The energy and intellect reminded us that the future of Bahamian democracy will not be defined or denied by doubt or division, but by courage, imagination, and a deep love of country. Building on that same commitment to youth empowerment, I was able to attend the Bahamas Military and Maritime Academy new entry 62 women and entry 31 passing out parade ceremony, HPS Coral Harbor. Madam President. I'm pleased to report the work we have done to the Next Gen program, because in that passing out, we had 3 of our entries who are now today a part of that great institution. And I can say to you that their parents, their mentors who were there, and the amount of people who really expressed their gratitude for all the work, not only you, Madam President, Senate colleagues, our partners, to see these young men really emerge into this and to be a part of such a great institution. I am so proud to be a part of an organization that wants to invest in young men, simply because the young men are truly our future in our country. And we were able and kind enough to, through termination and developing your emerge to anything within this country. And I also want to speak to, at least echo sentiments of G as pertains to a good Senate colleague, Darren Pickstock. For those who may not know him, he, apart from the right talk, when we started this program, we needed a person to come on board to give not only the resource, which he sponsored some of the young men, he also gave his time, personal time, even when we needed chaperones to go to take these young men to experience the world. His family came and helped and tutored and met these young men while they traveled. And I know, you have to give it up, seriously. And in addition to that, he also gave his time to be one of the mentors. And he taught them about leadership. He taught them about adapting to changes. I want to let you know, you're not getting somebody who's just coming to pass through. He is someone who has put in the work. Now, I could speak to my experience of my Senate colleague. Senate politicking, this is about proven track record. The relevance is one small amendment, Madam President, can make a difference in what we do with big people. And Darren Pickstock is an example of making that small amendment in the lives of young men in our country. All right? So, Madam President, turning to the bill. This legislation represents another important to the government's ongoing efforts to strengthen the Bahamas financial services framework. It maintains our global credibility and ensure our compliance regime remains robust, transparent, and effective. Over the past several years, the Bahamas has made remarkable progress in rebuilding its international reputation in the financial sector. Through constant engagement and meaningful reform, the government has moved from being at risk as a jurisdiction. We have implemented comprehensive anti-money laundering and counter-financing on terrorism standards, modernized reporting frameworks, and enhanced our systems for information exchange across jurisdictions. These reforms have restored confidence and reaffirm our position as a leader among small island financial centers. So, Madam President, the amendments contained in this bill brings our domestic legislation framework into closer alignment with evolving global standards under the OECD Common Reporting Standards for the automatic exchange of financial account information. Following the OECD's recent assessment, the recommendations were made to strengthen our administrative compliance framework. This bill responds directly and decisively to those recommendations. It introduces a clear definition of connection person, ensuring precision in how laws are applied. It empowers the competent authority to issue definitive CRS guidelines for financial institutions. It strengthens the supervisory powers of key regulatory bodies, the central bank, Securities Commission, and the Insurance Commission, enabling them to audit, inspect, and enforce with greater efficiency. Provides procedures for any conditions imposed by the competent authority, reinforcing transparency and due process. Administrative penalties collected under the Act will now be paid into the Consolidated Fund and define the pre-appeals process to the Supreme Court. This ensures fairness and accountability at every stage. So, Madam President, these are not amendments. They are the building blocks of a smarter and more agile financial planning. They position Bahamas not merely to comply with global standards, but anticipate them. They move us from reacting to innovation, from keeping pace to setting pace, and how island nations engage with global financial systems. So, Madam President, our commitment to high standard is not simply about meeting compliance checklists. It's about shaping the future of financial integrity and changing world. It signals to global investors and partners that the Bahamas is not content to follow the curve. We intend to define it. Each reform we make strengthens the foundation of a system built on trust, innovation, and excellence. So when investors choose the Bahamas, they are choosing confidence, a jurisdiction that stands tall among the best, with no blacklist to flare, no clouds over its reputation. They are choosing a nation that pairs resilience with creativity and tradition with transformation. They are choosing a country that believes competence can coexist with competitiveness, and that integrity can drive innovation. Madam President, this is how small nation leads in a big world, not by the markets, but the strength of our vision, by the discipline with which we bring that vision to life. Our commitment to high standards is not simply about compliance for compliance sake. It's a statement of who we are as a nation. It says that we believe in fairness, in transparency, and in doing business the right way. This legislation reinforces that belief. It protects reputation, fortitudes our institution, and positions the Bahamas not merely as a participant in the global economy, but as a leader among small nations that act with integrity and purpose. At its heart, Madam President, this bill is like every piece of legislation we pass in this chamber. It's about confidence. It's about the faith of our people placing us to build a fairer system, to defend their future, and to leave behind stronger than what we found it. So as we do this work together, with honesty, with humility, hope, then I'm confident that our best days as a nation are still ahead of us. Because the Bahamas is not defined by the challenges we face, but by the courage in which we face them with. Not by the size of our islands, but by the strength of our ideals. As long as we believe in each other and in our young people, for sure, in the promise of this great nation, there's nothing we cannot achieve. For these reasons, Madam President, I'm pleased to lend my full support to the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Amendment Bill 2025, and I commend it to this House, the Senate, for passage. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Your Honorable, for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator Your Honorable Darren.
Madam President, thank you, Senator Duncombe. Just now, for a moment, reminded me of a great PL people. Just for a brief moment, Mr. Lyndon. when he started speaking about the greatness of our little country, he believed so greatly that we could achieve far beyond our wildest imaginations. And we soldier on. Senator, your work with Next Gen, the conviction you have for them is commendable. And it reminds me of a lady who sits in the gallery who had very serious conviction and that domestic violence in our country, particularly against women and girls, should not and ought not be tolerated anywhere in these lovely islands of ours. And that is Dr. Sandra Day, an icon in this area of action against violence. And we probably wear our white ribbon and announcing to the world that we will speak up, we will protect, and we will say something when women and girls are threatened. And I have this sole obligation. I have these wonderful granddaughters. Dr. Patterson, I never had girls. So God, in his own inimitable way, gave me these girls, granddaughters. And I never knew, to hark back to a song that I used to remember. I never knew love like before. And it is unimaginable to me that someone could exact violence against a woman or a girl. And I want to say to those young men and even some older men that sometimes it's difficult to deal with your situation, but it is always best to walk away. It is always best to pull yourself back for a moment and think, because sometimes the actions that you take will change life, the life of the person whom it impacts forever. And God knows, at the end of the day, it is not worth it. So think, back away. Think about your sister. Think about your daughter. Think about your nieces, your cousins, female, and step back, walk away, do whatever you have to do. Go in the car for a long drive. We have a beautiful coastline here in New Providence. Just drive the coastline and roll the windows down and take a deep breath. Think about it. We've all been there at some point where you thought that violence was the answer, and it is not. And I've always said to my three sons, before you lay your hand on a woman, leave her. She's not your child. Even your children, you ought to be careful about how you chastise them. And so I want to commend the work that you do, you and your colleagues, at the Domestic Violence and Crisis Center, along with the Rotary Club. It is needed, and you can't right, because we see women is still very prevalent in our country. The other day, found a pregnant mother, and very, very bad circumstances, dead because of violence of some kind or the other that was exacted against her. And it is never justified. And so, on that same note, I want to extend condolences, Madam President, to the family of Madeleine Thompson, whom we lost in Panama. She was at some program for, and we still don't know what the cause was, but I'm told the government is looking into it, and I'm sure we're going to learn very, very shortly, but it must be a very tough time for her parents, her classmates. You should be assured that we are thinking about you in our thoughts and prayers, and we're praying for more of God's grace to keep you. Senator Pickstock has left us, and all I want to say about Senator Pickstock is that he was a worthy adversary, and he side as we seek to do our job on this side. And I'll say to the government of the Bahamas, save his seat in here because he's assured to return. He will shortly return to this place. He will shortly return to this place and resume his work here. Not in that other place. That other place is reserved for Brian Brown. Who's going to go over there? Who's going to go over there? Who's going to go and represent the people of Golden Isles?
But like he said, he got to do his job. He got to do his job.
As he has been doing for the last 6 years in Golden Isles, representing them.
You don't believe that.
You know,
You don't believe that, but you got to do your job.
I don't know what y'all getting up in arms about.
Listen, you got to do your job. We understand. We understand.
You know, even Madam President, let me speak to you because Madam President, in this morning's Guardian, even Senator Pickstock declared that the people of Golden Isles was sorely neglected. He said, I'm tired of them calling for things and asking for things. They can't get nothing done. And they can't get nothing done.
Senator.
Yes, Madam President.
Senator, do you have this
No, I could get, now you want me to get
table
it?
or you adopted?
No, I could get it and read it. You want me to get it and read it?
It's your contribution. It's
No,
your
no, I could get it and read it. Get it and read it. You know,
senators, order,
man, I was in full of it, Vicky, you know.
order. Senator Handfield,
Yes, ma'am.
firstly, speak to the chair.
Yes, I'll speak to you. Let me move.
Thank you. Secondly, Senator,
Yeah.
do you wish to table?
I don't have the newspaper. But the newspaper is here.
Thank you. Okay,
You know, it's
let's move on.
common knowledge, man. It's common knowledge.
Senator, let's move on to the automatic exchange of financial sectors bill,
Pull it
please.
up for me, since they want to hear what the newspaper say. Pull it up for me, since they want to hear what the newspaper say. Pull it up for me, since they hear they want to hear what the newspaper say, man. They want to hear what the newspaper say. Let me, because I don't want to, you know, Senator, no, that's your candidate's opinion.
No, he sent
That's your, what
Senator Handfield,
Send up.
Senator Handfield, can you speak to the chair, please? Speak to the chair, thank you.
Please tell her leave me alone. I'm not disturbing her. She has an opportunity to speak after I'm finished. Please ask her to leave me alone.
Senators, can you please follow the rules and be quiet as Senator Handfield, the chair is speaking. You're not listening to me.
Yes, Madam President, yes, by all means.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Handfield. Can you all please be quiet as the senator has the floor? Please proceed. Please proceed, Senator Handfield. We're debating. Just let me remind you what we're debating, Senator Handfield. The automatic exchange of financial account information and the resolutions. I'm just reminding you.
We were talking about how Pickstock going down to Golden Isles to do what he can do. I didn't hear you reminding nobody then. No, you insist. What you insisted is that I get the paper, and so here's the paper. I saw got in from this morning, right? No, I'll adopt this. I will read and adopt this. I will read and adopt this. Progressive Liberal Party candidate for Golden Isles, Darren Pickstock, was sounding more like a member of the opposition party on Friday as he highlighted how people in the constituency have been ignored and neglected. He sounded like one of us. At a moment of clarity and lucidity, he spoke. Speaking from a rally-type stage, after he nominated Anatole Rogers High School, Pickstock said he's offering real progress. That means they had no real progress, you know. In the past, 4 years? No real progress. I'm tired, I'm quoting now my brother Darren, my namesake. I'm tired of people being ignored. That is why I'm running, he said. I'm tired of people calling for help and getting excuses. I hope he is speaking ill of the dead, because I don't know who they were calling for help in Golden Isles and getting excuses. I'm tired of seeing our community wait years for the simple things: a fixed street light, a paved road, a safe park for kids to play in. My brother was tired of plenty things. And then he says, I'll stop after this, you know. And I quote, "People are not asking for the world, they are just asking for someone who listens, who shows up, and someone who can get things done. From that, I infer that they weren't getting anything done. Now, that is a wonderful endorsement of Brian. A wonderful endorsement of Brian Brown. That is right there. And so the people of Golden Isles know well what to do on by-election day. They know well what to do. Because if you vote for him, you can get more of what you had. You can get more of what you had. Nothing done. Nothing done. Plenty lip service. And very little done. And very little done. No, the problem, Madam President, is the problem, Madam President, is not with him working, you know. The problem is that what was the PLP doing in the last 4 years? That's the problem. That is the problem. And so as we look at this dormant accounts resolution for 17 million, and we look at this automatic exchange of financial account information amendment, and you know, Senator Barnett Ellis, you said something very important before you concluded. You spoke about selective transparency. Today was tabled in this place a report from the food program, which was severely assailed by the government and government members. Severely. Call those people everything but a child of God. Everything but a child of God, they call those people in that place, outside that place, and other places. For the report to come back and say all the people had were administrative deficiencies. And not one member of this government will stand up and apologize and say to Bahamians, we had misspoken. We were wrong and we're sorry. And we're sorry for what we had done. And the way we talked about the program and the people who ran the program. Because they were of a lighter hue than we are. And that's all why we did it. That's all why we did it. I used to hear you all say it. I used to hear you all say how you go on to Life with Key to do the program and stuff like that. No, Ryan believes he's of your hue. He believes he's of your hue. My brother believes he's of our hue. So he's not a part of that. Assailed the program badly. And not one person would stand up and say, mea culpa. We were wrong. Despite an audit report being tabled in both houses today now of this parliament, to say that you were wrong. And you owe those people an apology. You owe the Bahamian people an apology for what you have done. That's my sister calling me now. Jackie, I can call you later. Right now, I'm dealing with something. I love my sister, Jackie. You know, that brings
That's what she got it. That's what she got it for.
Dr. Patterson.
Maybe you should answer that.
Dr. Patterson, sometimes these women offer violence too, you know. Madam President, I want to, as we look at this resolution and we look at automatic accounts, right? And we look at automatic exchange of financial account information, and we talk about the reasoning behind the dormant account money that the government is using now to assist with recovery after disaster, among other things. I want to stand here and give God thanks for bringing me again safely through another Category 5 storm. I happened to have been in Jamaica, and I couldn't get out. But I trusted in faith that God would keep us, and he did. I want to also thank the government of the Bahamas who responded, because as a former foreign minister, I know when Bahamians are caught out and they need the government's assistance, it is very important that the government does so, and the government did, because some people were not prepared for the extended stay, and the government sought to assist those individuals. After the government had done so, and I'm a fair man, I'm a transparent man, Ronnie, I try to speak truth. If you don't speak truth, Ronnie, you're not gonna be, you're not gonna be. Yeah, I try always to speak truth. And if the government does something good, Darren is the first one to tell you, you did a good thing. And so I reached out to Alveda Knight, who was our consul general in Jamaica. I also spoke with our Director General, Jerusa Ali, and they assured us. We spoke with the Deputy Prime Minister, and assured us that those people would be looked after who could not. No, I spoke to all his people, and I thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Through him, we were able to get the assistance because his good officers were at work. I didn't mean to be facetious by saying it that way. He didn't need to be involved if I had his Director General and his Consul General. I didn't intend to be facetious, and I thank Bahamas Air, who went to great lengths to get us back home on Friday, drove us from Kingston because the airport in Montego Bay was still not open to commercial traffic. Drove us from Montego Bay to Kingston, nice buses, and got us home. And Tanya Pratt, the chairperson from Bahamas Air, called, and we had a wonderful conversation about what was going on. But I really want to commend the people at the hotel, Dreams Rose Hall Resort and Spa in Montego Bay, who I thought did yeoman's work under very trying circumstances. Being from the Bahamas, we are used to hurricanes. We know what hurricanes look like. And those people were able to keep the lights on, keep us fed, kept us in our rooms. I think we didn't lose air conditioning until probably the second night or so. Some other people were there from different parts of the world who had not experienced hurricanes before. I had to speak to them kind of sternly, being a former military officer, complaining about water on the ground, water on the floor, and a couple of panes being broken out, and I thought they did yeoman's work in the way that they looked after us. Thank you. And I got a call from Senator Russell. I got a call from Senator Russell in the throes of it, and I said to him, my brother, we're seeing here, you used the Dorian. What we're seeing here right now is only about 60 knots of wind. I suspect it'll get up a little higher, but from my vantage point and from my experience, I don't think it ever exceeded where I was. It ever exceeded like 150, 160. So, yeah, Dorian had gusts of 230. Dorian had gusts of 230, sustained at 180, right? So Dorian was a monster of a different sort. As we look at this bill, this resolution, and we talk about how we're going to help in response and mitigation to these natural climatic events that are coming more ferociously, more frequently. I mean, we're in the cooler, we're in the fall now, and we're still having in this region Cat 5s. That's not normal. It's not normal. And then we look at this issue of uninsured properties all across the Bahamas. Dorian exposed and laid bare this issue. I think some 60% of the homes or structures in Alpo were not insured. And now, insurance companies are not willingly giving insurances to people in places like Abaco and Grand Bahama because of it, right? And so here we are. My colleague Senator Halkidas indicated that we are, I think it was him, we are the least offensive in black carbon emissions. But we suffer the most because of it. These capitalistic industrial countries that pollute the atmosphere and cause the earth to warm up and to heat up, and we get the brunt of it. And then they come and say to you, go and fix your law in the financial services sector, right? And I often take exception when I hear people on the other side say, they did this in the financial services sector, they did that in the financial services. Man, you all ain't doing no more than nobody else. All you're doing now is bringing water for the Europeans, as every other government before you have done. or has done. Yeah, you do what they say, and we're tired of doing that. And we all in this together. So stop this divisive political rants.
Your whole contribution on a defensive political rant.
I'm talking about financial services. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about financial services. We have been lockstep. We have been lockstep with you. We have been lockstep with you every step of the way when it comes to financial services. When it comes to financial services. And you know it. And you know it. And you stand here, you stand in this place and try to segregate yourself like you're the paragon of this and that. You don't care no more. You don't care no more about financial services than any of us. No. And when they come and they do their audits, they tell you this is what you have to do. And that's why we're here today. And we support what you have to do because we understand how important the financial services industry is to the Bahamas. We understand it. We understand it. And that's why we support it. Because we feel it's unfair the way they move the goalposts. You've said to them over and over, you keep moving the goalposts. You set standards and then you change them. While Guernsey and Delaware and other places are doing the very same things, untouched by you. So stop that. Let's work together when it comes to certain things. Now, Golden Isles, we're working together with that. Right? But when it comes to financial services and climate change, we applaud the Prime Minister's efforts. We applaud his efforts in climate change. We just rail against those big crews that he carried. We rail against that. You can't carry 60 and 70 people on these trips for a small country like ours. Go and do your thing, because we need it done. You, before the Hague, you're telling them about the unfairness of climate justice, injustice. We applaud that. That's what we need. Okay? So let's work together with these things where we can. Some things we can work together with, some things we won't. Right? Because the OECD, FATF, and the other groups that sanction us, they are inequitable in the way they do it. They are biased in the way they approach it. And quite frankly, they are unfair in their treatment of small island developing states like ours who are simply trying to carve out a space for ourselves in the financial services sector. They are. And so, Madam President, you know, I'm not going to be long today, you know. I'm not going to be long today. No, I think that's it. I think that's it for me. All we really want you to do is sometimes when you come here and you ask for these blank checks, I call them, say what you can do with the money. Say how you can spend the money. Because you often don't say. And you come, you get it, and there's no transparency. There's no accountability. And you know, some in this place act like you dare ask them a question. You dare ask them a question about the people's money. Like what you do with that $10 million you put in the Michael Village company that was not registered. These are questions that people need, Bahamas need to answer. But you could see $10 or $20 million worth of homes, man. You could see $10 or $20 million worth of homes, Madam President. I don't see them. I don't see $10 million worth of homes. Tell us what you do with that money. Tell us where the money comes from and what you do with it. That's all the Bahamian people want to know, you know. They want to hear answers from us. People who lead us. They want accountability from us. I don't know if this PLP administration could ever be accountable. Madam President, you know, I'm wrapping up here right now. I want us to consider Minister Halkidas, my friend and brother. I got, in 2019 as foreign minister, $1 million from the Rana of India to build a hurricane shelter. I convinced the cabinet, because we had just come out of Dorian, to put that hurricane shelter in Albuquerque. You know, every time we have a bad hurricane coming to the southeastern Bahamas, we have to bring people all the way to New Providence. Let's look at how we can find perhaps a central location, if we can't put them in all of the islands right away, right? Like maybe Exuma or Long Island, somewhere in that vicinity. a properly appointed hurricane shelter that is built for the purpose of sheltering our people in times of storm. You know, somebody sent me some pictures for the opening of that shelter in Abaco. It's very sad I wasn't even invited. It's very sad. It's very, very sad. It's very sad. You know, as governments, we say we are continuous, and we could acknowledge some things that some of us do. We don't have to be so segregated and cannibalistic in our approach. No, I wasn't invited. The minister, the former minister of Works wasn't invited. None of the people who started the project was invited that I saw, that I knew. And we started the project. Our government determined to put it there because we were tired of people having to go to schools and churches and other buildings to avoid, you know, when hurricanes are coming. I saw in the passage of the Dorian and the eye of the storm, people came out of all kind of collapsed buildings to the government complex. And thank God we had the government complex. It was an ark of safety, right? So let's look at how we could strategically place these kind of hurricane shelters. Perhaps in Exuma for the southern Bahamas. One is in Abaco now. I don't know if we can put a proper one in Grand Bahama, which has a huge population, right? This kind of thing that we should use some of this money for. We should also use the money to look at flood mitigation, like flood insurance. FEMA has a flood insurance program in the United States of America, where if you have a regular insurance company, if you live in a flood-prone area, and a regular insurance company will not sell you insurance, the government steps in and makes insurance available to you at an affordable rate. These are some of the instruments that we need to be looking at now. Because we're going to solve this flooding problem that we have in the southern corridor of this island in particular, right, overnight. So we have to find a way to help people recover after these bad floods have come. And so with those few words, Madam President, we support what the government is doing here today, and we hope they put these monies to good use, and we hope that our financial services sector continue to grow from strength to strength. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. The Honorable Darren Henfield. As many.
Thank you. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, colleagues, for the most part, a debate that kept on point, except for the last debate we heard, the last contribution, which seemed to stray pretty far off point, Madam President. You know. But I appreciate the colleagues. There was only one thing that really I heard from the opposition that requires, I think, a follow-up and a clarification. We heard Senator Barnett speak about gaming houses not included in the amendment. The simple reason for that, Madam President, is gaming houses are not considered financial institutions under the Common Reporting Standard, and therefore they're not within scope of the legislation. Secondly, the Common Reporting Standard, exchange of financial information, is the exchange of financial information from a Bahamian financial institution on a client who is resident and lives abroad. As we know, gaming houses are domesticated in domestic activity. So even if they were financial institutions, there would be no reporting by the gaming houses because it's all domestic financial transactions. But having said that, they're out of scope of the legislation. They're out of scope of what a financial institution is defined as for the purpose of the Common Reporting Standard, and therefore that is why they're not included in the amendment. Certainly when it comes to AML matters and money laundering matters, they are within scope. They're specifically within scope of the Financial Transactions Reporting Act. That's a different regime, a regime to prevent illicit financial activity, nonetheless, but a different regime on money laundering matters. So with that clarification, I so move for the second reading the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Amendment Number 2, Bill 2025. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Honorable Ryan Pinder. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act.
For the second reading of bills. Committee of the Whole. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the Senate do now resolve itself into a committee of the whole with the Vice President of the Senate in the chair.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now resolve itself into a committee of the whole with the Vice President, Chairman of the Committee of the Whole in the chair. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried.
Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, with respect to a bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The long title of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that clauses 2 through 7 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 7 of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 7 of the bill are agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill be agreed in its entirety. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the President do now take the chair.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the President do now take the chair. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Madam President will now take the chair. Madam President, I beg leave to report that the Committee of the Whole has examined the bill, having made no amendments thereto.
Honorable Senators, the Vice President and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole has reported that the committee has examined the bill, having made no amendments thereto. Third reading and passing of bills. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act.
Is there a
Second.
seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act.
Order this bill do now pass, and the title thereof declared to be Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Amendment Number 2, Act 2025. For the third reading of bills, consideration of House amendments, resolutions.
Madam President. Madam President, I move the following resolution, and I'll read the first and the last paragraphs. Whereas Section 19 of the Disaster Risk Management Act 2022, number 39 of 2022, provides that the Disaster Risk Management Authority shall maintain the Disaster Emergency Fund, which shall be used to fund disaster response, rehabilitation, recovery, and the adoption of financial protection instruments. Now therefore be it resolved that this House, 1, authorizes the Treasurer to dispose of $17 million from the dormant account proceeds held by the Treasurer and forming a part of the consolidated fund, and 2, approves the transfer of $17 million by the Treasurer from the dormant account proceeds held by the Treasurer and forming a part of the consolidated fund to the Disaster Emergency Fund.
Is there a second? Second. The resolution is agreed. Okay. Okay. Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. I will read the first and the last paragraphs of the resolution. Whereas Section 19 of the Disaster Risk Management Act 2022, number 39 of 2022, provides that the Disaster Risk Management Authority shall maintain the Disaster Emergency Fund, which shall be used to fund disaster response, rehabilitation, recovery, and the adoption of financial protection instruments. And whereas the Minister of Finance is seeking approval through the resolution to transfer $17 million from the dormant account proceeds held by the Treasurer and forming a part of the consolidated fund to the Disaster Emergency Fund. Now therefore be it resolved that this House authorizes the Treasurer to dispose of $17 million from the dormant account proceeds held by the Treasurer and forming a part of the consolidated fund, approves the transfer of $17 million by the Treasurer from the dormant account proceeds held by the Treasurer and forming a part of the consolidated fund to the Disaster Emergency Fund. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is hereby passed. Discharge of select committees. Notices of future meetings.
Madam President, I renew all notices in the name of the government.
Orders for clerk. Adjournment.
Madam President, I move that the Senate at its rising do adjourn sine die.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the Senate at its rising do adjourn sine die. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Final adjournment.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the Senate do now adjourn.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now adjourn. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The Senate stands adjourned.